to the Zero Barriers Podcast.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Zero Barriers Podcast. I am Eli, and I'm here for the second episode of the Zero Barriers Podcast. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned into the first episode. I honestly thought about 15 people would listen to it, and I didn't even think that those 15 people would listen to the whole thing. It turns out that as of so it's now been almost 2 weeks since that first episode released, and over 100 people had listened to it from start to finish based on what my podcast hosting app told me. So that is so awesome, and I am so grateful. And so many people reached out to me, mostly on Instagram, and just said your podcast is really cool or really interesting concepts, and lots of people wanted to get involved, which is really great. And so yeah, it's awesome to hear that type of feedback. I'm really happy to hear that. So thank you so much, guys, and hopefully you'll listen to future ones as well. Now, so yeah, the point at the schedule at the moment is to release one every couple of weeks, probably on a Wednesday morning. And that will get released. So once every couple of weeks for the first few episodes, and then after that, I'll think about moving to a weekly basis. Hopefully I have the time, but probably for the first 4 or 5, maybe even 6 episodes, it'll just be fortnightly, just while I build this up a bit and get everything sorted, I suppose, and have all these guests lined up. Because I did mention in the last episode that Charlie would be here for every second podcast, or every other podcast, I should say. So I did mention that in the first episode. So the other podcast will be me and another guest. And maybe every now and then I might just do a podcast by myself and see how that is, because that is something that, it's scary to me, but this whole podcast is all about putting yourself outside your comfort zone, We are talking about anything and everything. There's Zero Barriers to this podcast. It's unscripted and unedited. Anyway, before I go on any more of a tangent, I will introduce my guest today. Now, he's from halfway across the world, all the way in Wales, and to be honest, he filled in, and I'm really thankful that he's jumped on today, because about 4 people pulled out last minute for this episode. I had them lined up. I had several people lined up for the past, since probably Wednesday last week, and then each of them sort of pulled out, and I got a new one, and then the next person pulled out. And yeah, so I'm a little bit annoyed about that, but that's okay, because we have Bulent here. Now, Bulent, hello, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
And I'm really excited to talk about our topic, but before we get to that, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Bulent, and Eli and I met a few years ago now, I think. It was on a Facebook group about football. And yeah, the rest is history. We've been talking ever since.
Yep. So that's the way it is sometimes. Online friendships and whatnot. It's a shame we never actually got to meet up in person when I was over there, but
yeah, I think I was in uni at the time, and
yeah,
I had so many things going on. So
yeah, I think I was too busy traveling, so
exactly,
country to country. Yeah. So just a couple of things before we start. Yeah, so Apple Podcasts and Spotify is where we're at. I'm also thinking about uploading on YouTube and starting an Instagram. So look for this space. And another thing, I've been asking my friends about life hacks at the moment, and I put it on my Instagram story, and it's something I want to introduce in future episodes. So if you have a life hack, send me a life hack, and I'll talk about it on the podcast, because I would be really interested in what people consider to be their biggest life hacks. And I brought this up in the last episode. I really am obsessed with the idea of a life hack. But anyway, today, for the second episode of the Zero Barriers podcast, and our first actual proper, I guess, topic, because the last episode was a introduction and a kind of brief overview of what this year has to offer. Which means that, yeah, this episode is technically the first topic, and we are discussing happiness. And we are going to be kind of delving deep into the question about, I guess, how does one define happiness? Because obviously, I personally think that happiness means something to different people. But yeah, we're gonna talk about happiness, and we're gonna delve into how one would define happiness, and I guess a few ideas surrounding happiness and questions that can be posed around it, but focusing on that big idea of happiness and how one defines it. As I said, this is unedited, unscripted. I do have some key points in my head that I will bring up as we go. But I guess I'll start with you, Bulent. What is the happiest moment of your life? Do you have a happiest moment that you can recall on right now?
I can, off the top of my head. I was an only child to begin with, and I would always say to my parents, I want a brother or sister just to, do something with, play on the PlayStation or whatever. And when my brother was born in 2008, I mean, it was one of the happiest days of my life. I would finally have a brother, we could play on FIFA or something and do this and do that. Yeah. I mean, now he's better than me and beats me and everything, but we don't have to talk about that.
How old's your brother, sorry?
He's 13 now.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Go on, sorry.
Yeah, there's a bit of an age gap, but, the older he's got, we get on fine, and, I do anything for him, and I'm sure you do the same.
Yeah, and I think that kind of siblings, I think are just awesome to have. I grew up with two older sisters. I always wanted a brother. Obviously, you can't always get what you want, but no, it's definitely a very good and happy feeling, I suppose. In terms of that though, what type of emotions are we talking about here? I guess for me, it's especially for I was the youngest, so I never experienced siblings being born. However, it was a really great moment of my life when my little niece was born, because I never really had babies in my life that close to me. And then August 2019, my little niece was born, and I literally tell people all the time, I'm not ashamed of saying, she's literally my best friend. I love spending time with her. I'm always posting on my social media with her, and she's my niece. I care about her so much, and just the joy. I know it wasn't just me; it was all my family, but we were just so excited, and it was just it just brings you up to another level. It doesn't matter what you got going on in life at the time. The birth of someone significant in your life can kind of bring those exciting feelings. I suppose so. Yeah, how old were you when your little brother was born?
I was 9 at the time.
You were 9, yeah. So obviously, you wouldn't have been completely, you wouldn't understand your emotions completely at that time, I suppose, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's normal as well. I mean, especially when you're that age.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, so leading into the question of the day, I suppose, the question of the podcast is how one defines happiness. Now, the reason why I asked you that question, Bulent, is because it's obviously those feelings. It's those events and those life events and things that happen in your life that are happy, that are exciting, that bring you joy, that are at the end of the day what happiness is. But I suppose how would you, in your experience, describe what happiness is in terms of just physical feeling, mental feeling, you know, I guess the way, like, if you're struggling to answer the question, just think about how you feel when you're rock bottom. And I find that a really easy emotion to describe. And then think of the opposite, I suppose. So how would you define it?
Oh, well, happiness, I mean, I guess you could say it does last. Maybe a short time, a long time. I know if I hit rock bottom, there's always people I can fall back to, who I know will cheer me up. Like I said, there's my brother, there's my family, there's friends from uni and so on, and watching something. So there's a lot of things that I guess I would say in terms of that, yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing is as well, like psychologists, like I've read up a little bit about like the topic before, and I know for a fact that psychologists say that happiness is something that is kind of broadly defined. What makes one person happy might not make someone else happy. And at the end of the day, like, I'm not sure about you, but for some people, the little things in life bring a lot of joy to people.
Exactly.
And a lot of happiness. Yeah. Well, other people, those type of things, it just doesn't happen. Like, they need so much more. They always want more. And I think that's kind of where greed and money come into things sometimes as well, because you get people out there who, like, they can have what you and I might define as everything in the world, yet at the end of the day, it's not enough for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know, like, are you someone that finds, like, smaller things in life, like, that are normally the things that make you happy, or is it, like, bigger events? Is it, like, those significant times, like your brother's birth, or, or can you just be, like, brought up by, like, a small gesture, like someone saying, you look nice today, or,
I think so. Yeah. I mean, if someone just said, like, for example, you look nice today, or someone who's always, struggled with self-confidence, that can change my day, can make my day even. So definitely the little things, can mean a lot. So I agree with what you said then, absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess, why do you think it's so important as well for something like, why do you think it's so important to feel happy? Because everyone wants to be happy at the end of the day, but why? Like, and I'm asking you why. Obviously, it seems like an obvious thing, but I'm gonna come back to a question about why I think, not being happy all the time can be a good thing. So I want to know why you think happiness is important, and then I'm gonna actually make a counterclaim as to why being happy might not be as important as what we think.
I think happiness is the key to life. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the saying before, life's too short as it is, and I think happiness can change everything. It can mean everything. Like you said, something small that you can do for someone, just open the door for them. You might think, well, I only open the door for them, it doesn't mean much, but to that other person, it can mean a lot. So yeah, I think it's the key to life, and like I said, life is too short as it is, and it's easy for me to say, but sitting around sulking and so on, I think we always got to make the most of life and live every day as if it was our last. So that's why I think that happiness is 100% key to life.
Yeah, well, I think, like, before I go into what I was going to say, do you think happiness is all that matters? In a sense, like, is that the point in life? Because whether you're, like, if you take away religion and spirituality and all of that and just look at life from start to end, is the point of life to achieve as much happiness as possible?
I think it depends on who you ask. It is granted, and not every time of your life and will always be happy. You won't always be happy. So yes and no. I think it depends who you ask. Is happiness the 100? Is it key to life? I think I'm probably contradicting myself now from what I just said, but you can't really expect to be happy all the time. I don't think anyway.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that goes on to what I wanted to talk about here is I would raise the point that personally for me, this is just what I think, and maybe this is just because I'm a bit of an emotional person, but I love being happy. Happy is a great feeling. Every positive feeling associated with happiness, such as excitement, such as joy, just that rush, It's like going on a water slide and you feel that adrenaline rush through your system and you just can't stop smiling or laughing, and you just kind of don't think about the fear in it. I mean, some people are scared of that kind of stuff and they don't enjoy those things. But for me, I love water parks. Roller coasters are another story. I absolutely hate roller coasters. But, yeah, it's interesting, those feelings associated with happiness, and they're great and all, but at the end of the day, my counterclaim here is that, it might not always be the best thing to be happy because, and going back to what I'm saying about being a highly emotional person, is when I'm happy, and I'm up here, if I have a really good day and a really happy day and I'm up here, and then the next day I have a crap day, I'm down here and I feel like I've hit rock bottom, even though I'm not at rock bottom. It's just that I've fallen so hard. Do you get what I mean there? And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's like, that's why I think personally being content is actually a better way to be, a better way to live your average day. Like, if you had a 10 out of 10 day and then the next day is a 4, to be honest, I would rather have 2 6 out of 10 days. And maybe that's just me, but I just think falling so far from the top, from being the absolute best and being a peak, to the next day just having an absolute shocker, just feels much worse in comparison. I don't know if you would agree with me there, or...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, you can have a 10 out of 10 day the next, and an average crappy day the following. But if you feel content, at least you're satisfied. Maybe not necessarily happy, but satisfied at least. I don't know. I mean, that's what I would say anyway.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing about being content, I suppose, compared to like happiness, is content is just neutrality. Like, the fact is, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this, is we're not going to be happy all the time. We're going to have shit days. Everyone has shit days, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you can meet someone that's having 365 days in a year that are outstanding and amazing, and, I'll be very surprised, because I don't know anyone like that. You meet people that come across as happy all the time, but obviously you don't really know what's going on in their background and whatnot like that. So I think like being content can actually be like a really good spot to be instead of being happy, because it's like, well, you're not going to be falling to rock bottom. But then again, as I said, that's just me. That's just how I find it. Like, some people can have a really happy day or a really happy moment, and then the next be really shit, and then still be absolutely fine with that. Like, they can be like, oh, it's okay, it's just a bad day, let's move on. Well, for me personally, if I have a really good day and then a really shit day, I just feel a lot worse for the shit day. While if I'm content and then the next day I have a shit day, the fall isn't as bad, the drop isn't as bad. So You know, do you get my counterclaim though about being happy? You know, like I obviously,
Absolutely.
obviously I'm not saying that happiness is a negative thing. I'm just saying, like, you could technically make the argument there that, you know, maybe neutrality and, contentness, it could be a better place to be sometimes. Because you're not gonna fall so hard if you have a bad day. So yeah, that's just an interesting point of view on happiness. Which leads me into the next sort of talking point I'm thinking of. And that is, what is the best way for someone to attain happiness? I'll just start off with a little bit and then I'll hand it to you. But, personally, I think this is obviously something that, differs from person to person. So, what one person, like, this is breaching off the whole, what does one define as happiness? This is kind of breaching off that a little bit, but, attaining happiness, like, how does one attain happiness? And how should one attain happiness? I think it's definitely something that, yeah, it differs from person to person. Some people are gonna be, you know, like their point of view and how they, like how they think the best way to attain happiness might be different to someone else. And I'll talk about what I want in life in a minute, but what do you think is the best way to attain happiness? Just in general, like for the average person, what is the best way to attain happiness?
Well, I did a psychology module when I was in my final year of uni, and I'm glad I did because it helps me with answering a question like this. I think you accept the good. You know, you look at your life and you take stock of what's working, and you know you don't push something away just because it isn't perfect. I think, you know, to attain happiness, when good things happen, even the very little ones, you let them in. So that's one thing, and it's quite a simple answer as well. The next point I wanted to make: you be with others who make you smile. You know, and studies have shown, and I found this out on the module I was doing. We're happiest when we're with those who are also happy, because their energy rubs off on us, doesn't it? I'm sure you can relate. And so you stick with those who are joyful and let it rub off on you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's 100% something that we should. I mean, I love that last point you're going about sticking around people that make you happy and that are happy. And I think this goes far, like this can go far deeper, where you can talk about different social groups and who people hang around. And I don't know about you, but like, you know, okay, let's talk about like emos, for example. I mean, I'm not saying emos are all depressed and sad and whatnot, but that is like a class of people that have personality traits and they act the same and they have the same moods. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And over here we call them eshays, but I think you guys call them shavs. You know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
skinheads with like Nike TNs, and you know, they're a bit rough around the edges, like getting in pub fights, you know, those kind of guys. I think you could attribute their moods probably quite similar as well. So, I mean, it's a bit off topic, but it's, you know, it's interesting how what we are, we kind of attract what we are, and we're also attracted to what we are as well, if that makes sense. And I know personally, I've actually had people cut me out of my life before, like friends, and this actually hurts me to this day. And like, I doubt they'd be listening. But, if they are, I'm a bit upset at them, at these particular people, but these were some of my considered close friends from high school. And these people cut me out. They cut me out, quote unquote, because I was too depressed. That is what one of them told me.
What?
Yeah, that was. This person told me this via Messenger. Probably. It would have been well over a year ago now. I think the last time I saw this person was January 2020. And after I spoke to them, I think they said I was too depressed, or it might have even been before that they said I was too depressed. And I'd only seen them once since they told me that. But anyway, I am not a depressed person at all. I had been in the past, but even then I was still happy. I was still having really good days. And yeah, to have someone call out that and say something like, your mood affects me. That's essentially what they're saying. And like I said, I don't think I've had depressing parts of my life, but I'm not a depressed person, if that makes sense. And
yeah.
I think it's unfair to push someone away based on something like that. But it goes to the point about just how much we actually value happiness, because I would actually sometimes sympathize with that thought. I understand why, if I was actually, always crying, which I wasn't. I know I don't cry. Sometimes every now and then I do. We all cry, but, if I was doing that every time I was around them and just bringing on negative feelings all the time, which I never was, then I'd understand, that's someone that I'd maybe distance from for a while, tell them to get a bit of help, some therapy, start a podcast.
Yeah.
But that's not what I, that's what, I would be helpful about it, I'm not saying I'm an amazing, perfect person, but you know what I mean? If someone's in that situation, and, they come across quite depressed, just help them out and help them become more happier. But, I like I said, I would sympathize a little bit, and I'd maybe distance myself a little bit if someone in my life was like that, and, because, I don't want to be around negative people all the time. But, it's just, something to think about. It brings me to the point, actually. I'm not sure if you've read the subtle art of not giving a fuck.
I've seen the book, yeah, I have.
Yeah, it's definitely a good read. I read it a couple of years ago. I think it was a couple of years ago now. And I honestly really like that book. I've found a lot of worth in it, and I was actually listening to a Mark Manson podcast today, actually, who's the author of that book, and he had 1,300 people or something email him about their experiences of 2020 and what they learnt and whatnot, which was a really cool podcast to listen to, and something I would love to, organize something like that myself. But someone said that 2020 taught them that that some friends are just glorified acquaintances. So that's an interesting thought. I know I'm going a bit off topic here, but it's kind of going back to, people that have maybe done me wrong, or maybe someone in your life that you felt have done you wrong. Someone had this thought, they just sent in a thought, and, the biggest thing that 2020 taught me is that some friends are just glorified acquaintances. And I thought, damn, that really struck a chord with me, because it's you might have so many people in your life, but at the end of the day, who's your real friend? So.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
Yeah.
if what else do you want to bring up here? Because I feel like I'm talking a bit at the moment, and I want to give you a voice, I suppose.
That's okay. I think one of the main things about happiness, and I'm sure you've been thinking about it, can money buy happiness? A lot of people, I mean, it depends who you ask. A lot of people will say yes, it can. And a lot of people will say no, it can't.
Oh, that's a good question, isn't it? Do you want me to give you my answer and then, or do you have an answer for this?
Be my guest. I'm happy to hear what you think.
Yeah, well, okay, so I think that it can, but like money will buy me a Ferrari, and in turn, a Ferrari is going to make me happy, right? Like at least a little happier.
Yeah.
I don't think if I won $10 million tomorrow, I don't think it's going to drastically change the way I feel about how happy I am. I think it might for a couple months, maybe a couple years. After that, that feeling's going to wear off. So, look, I guess yes, but also no. And also, I was reading an article the other day, and apparently, lotto winners are found to be more depressed and less happy after they win the lotto than before they win it. So there you go. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because honestly, I always think like money would just change me, and like, you know, just having a little extra would be awesome. I could buy a house, set up my future. All of these anxieties and concerns about my future that I often worry about and that keep me up at night sometimes. Those type of things would change with like $5 million even. So, yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, like you said, I think, yeah, okay, for a time being it will make you happy, but it won't be prolonged. I read actually, it was on this website called Visual Capitalist. Take from that what you will. Yeah, exactly. In March this year, they said previous studies have indicated that while money can in fact buy happiness, it apparently costs $75,000 a year. So,
okay, there you go.
It's like money will buy me happiness, but I have to pay for happiness. You know, like should I have to pay for it? You know, that's my counter argument to them.
Well, it's interesting because 75,000, but think about people that, you know, I am someone, and I'll willingly admit, like, I see a psychologist at the moment, but I'm at a much better place now, and I'm sort of, kind of almost finished off with those appointments, but, look, like, I'll willingly admit, like, that's something I do, and I do that because 2020 absolutely sucked, and I think it did for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are probably out there scared to seek help, and there's a lot of people that are scared of, you know, I shouldn't go to therapy, I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious, you know, vice versa. You don't have to be any of those things. If you just feel a little bit flat, or you just feel like sometimes, you know, life gets you down a bit too easier than it should, then it's something you should seek out. And there's so many people that are a part of my life, or used to be a part of my life, that I definitely think need to seek therapy. But what I was going to say is that you talk about $75,000 a year. Look, therapy costs a lot of money. Like, seeing a psychologist costs a lot of money, a lot of the time. Yeah. So that is like, you are technically buying happiness. Like, it might not work for you, but it works for a lot of people, including myself. Like, I've seen a couple of therapists over time, just at times where I just, like, thought, you know what, sometimes I've been genuinely, like, quite literally depressed or really anxious, and those times I definitely, like, I wasn't doing it just for happiness. I was doing it because my life in general felt quite a bit miserable. But at the moment, like, I started because I just thought 2020 sucked. You know, like, a lot of personal things happened in my life. COVID was terrible. a lot of things happened because of COVID. I came out of a relationship. I lost a lot of friends. Online uni was terrible. Just like, I had all these negative things, negative thoughts about 2020. I was like, if I don't get therapy for this now, I'm just gonna be left with trauma. So yeah, I think there is elements of buying happiness, which technically, like, is true. You can buy happiness, but maybe to not the extent in which you would like to be, happy. Because at the end of the day, man, like, what is money?
Exactly.
It can be so materialistic past a certain point. I mean, past the point where you're, past where it's like you're earning enough to live and be comfortable living. Then at that point, it's just excess, right? Like, think of the billionaires and millionaires out there. What do they do with this money? I always wonder that.
Absolutely.
And they've got billions a lot of the time.
The thing is as well, when they die, and, it's a fact we are all going to put a damper on the mood, but you can't take that with you.
That's it. And that's a great point to lead into. When I was overseas, there was this night out, and I didn't go out that night because I wanted to save money. And one of the best things I actually took from Europe, one of the best life advice, was that this guy told me that night, and I should have just listened to him. He said, "What, are you going to take money to the grave?" Because I was like, no, I don't want to come out, I want to save money. And he was so right. Like, you can't take money to the grave. It doesn't, And I'm not saying spend all your money and be poor and then just... because that's just going to make you miserable. But if you're these billionaires and millionaires... and don't get me wrong, I am someone who is pro entrepreneurship and pro self-success. Like, I love when I see figures like Elon Musk strive, because I'm like, you have built yourself up and become one of the most successful people in the world. Like, congratulations to you. Like, that is awesome. But at the end of the day, what's this dude gonna do with the billions of dollars he has? I mean, to be fair, he's living quite minimalistic now, I think, Elon Musk. I think he, sold his house and all his, cars, and he's, living in an apartment to try and be, heaps minimalistic. I don't know, but there's plenty of billionaires out there and celebrities that I enjoy listening to or enjoy watching, or, and I'm like, what are you doing? We could, do a lot with that money. But anyway, it's an interesting, point of view. And, there's, I want to bring up the point. Do you think happiness comes from making others feel good rather than ourselves? Because at the end of the day, like we've just been talking about, a lot of cases are, like we've just been saying, people get rich, win the lotto, and they have, they just feel more depressed than before winning the lotto. So do you think that, happiness truly comes from from helping others instead of, ourselves?
Well, this brings me to a time when I was working before, and a customer had come in and they were looking for their order, and at the time, whoever they asked first, they weren't able to find her. Now, I saw that this customer had their daughter with them, and she could have only been about 5 or 6, and I said to myself, I don't want that child to go home. If that was my child, whatever that's been ordered, they don't have. So I made it my mission to go above and beyond to find this for them. And at the end of the day, I did, and they went home with a smile on their face, and I thought, well, that's my good deed done for today. And for me, that was a priceless feeling. Okay, it didn't mean much to me, it wasn't for me, but they went home, they had that whatever they ordered, I made them happy. So for me, that was priceless.
Yeah, I agree. It's such a happy and amazing feeling in yourself when you do something that another person, gets a kick out of. Like, it's such an awesome feeling, like just making someone else happy. So, yeah, it's real interesting because I think inevitably, like, it's making you happy at the same time when when you make someone else happy, it makes you happy for making them happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think do you think there's any like myths about happiness? We've sort of spoken about financially, like if you're gonna be happy if you're rich and successful. But do you think there's any other sort of myths about happiness?
Well, I mean, like you said, we spoke about financial. That's one of the main ones, and people do say money can buy you this happiness. I'm not sure. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can be happy. I mean, there's so many myths. There probably isn't enough time to talk about them all. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the main one I draw to is financial, really.
Yeah, no. I just thought of another one before, and I want to bring this one up, and then I'll tell you a little bit of a story, and I'll ask you the same. So while I speak, have a think about this question, and this question is, what is going to make you happy in life? Like, what is your life goal? Like, and in turn, like this life goal. Well, maybe not even what is your life goal, but what do you think would make you happy personally in life? But anyway, I'll tell you mine, so have a think about what yours is, but, I want to say that another myth is that I'll be happy when I'm married to the right person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so now, that's probably a myth, and I'm about to be a hypocrite because if I'm honest, what I want in life and what I think is going to be make me happy at the end of the day is finding the right person, settling down with that person, marrying that person, having kids with that person is what happiness means to me. That is how I will achieve happiness, finding the right person. And look, I've been in a few relationships, and I would only say that two of them were I'd fallen in love with the person, and like there was great times about those relationships, and there was also terrible times. So I totally get why it's a myth that finding the right person is gonna make you happy, because I know that sometimes the right person can also be the wrong person, and it's not always smooth sailing. But yeah, in all honesty, yeah, that's what I think is happiness for me, and what I think is gonna make me happy, and that life goal of mine. And also, I think breaching off that is also being financially secure. So not rich, but just, earning enough money to support my family and, raising kids and making sure that they have not money necessarily, but just enough financial support, and not just financial support, but also loving support and care. So, yeah, that's honestly what I think is gonna make me happy. But, as I said, it's also a myth of happiness. I mean, finding the right person isn't going to make you happy. So it's interesting. I can understand both, because I know that that's not just single-handedly going to make me happy. I've been in loving relationships before and been pretty rubbish at times, and throughout long extended periods had not been happy with myself, or happy with my life. I'd become codependent on that person, like these people that were, I was in a relationship with. So, I think as well, like, even if I do have all these great things like a wife and kids, it's not, at the end of the day, ultimately, that might not be enough to make someone truly, by definition, happy. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on that? And then if you want to tell me what you define as what you would make you happy.
Yeah, I can completely see where you're coming from. You know, for some people, like you said, even having a wife, kids, beautiful home, a good job where it pays you well, that's not enough. And you got to ask yourself, or think about what is enough. What is going to be enough for me? I mean, as far as my life goal is, and I've thought about this for a while, I don't think I'll ever even reach an answer, a known answer for definite, but it's similar to what you said. You know, marry a beautiful woman, have beautiful children, have a nice house, a nice job. But the main thing for me is making a change. When I'm not here, I want people to see my kids and like my grandchildren and say, "Wow, look! It's Bulent's son or it's Bulent's daughter." I want to make that much of a change, so even when I'm not here, people still remember me, and they remember me through the eyes of my children and my grandchildren. So that's one of the main things for me, making a change. And obviously, I'm not saying being like a big superstar. I'd rather be modest, but yeah, just people to look at my child and say, "That's Bulent's kid." Say, "Wow," you know.
Yeah, I like that, and I think as well, like this world, the population is so large now. There's like, I don't know, it'd be close to 8 billion by now, surely.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure what it is, to be honest, but it's growing harder and harder to make a change in this world. But I think if you can just make a small change, or just, inspire a generation, I suppose. Like, I look up to my parents, and I look up to my grandparents as well. I see parts of my extended family that I look up to as well, and those things I won't forget. And I think that would probably bring them a bit of happiness, and it definitely brings me joy, and it definitely makes me feel happy that I've learnt from them, and I'll always carry that. And I would love to, pass things down to my kids and my grandkids, and like you said, kind of bring a change. Just make people feel happy, because ultimately, if you've changed someone's life for the better, and they have positive feelings about you and how they feel about you, then that's a really good feeling as well. And that's something you can kind of die with. You can die on that hill knowing, I have been the best person I could possibly be. And honestly, I haven't at like times in my life. I obviously have not been the best person. I've done a lot, particularly this year, but I've tried over the last few years, and I've got some things absolutely wrong. I've got some relationships, both romantically and friendships, really wrong, and there's elements of that I own up to, and I go, you know what, I was dumb. I'd sit and I had sat back and thought, I'm not a good person. Why, I don't deserve love. I don't deserve this and that, but you do. You always do. And as long as you recognize that you are in the wrong at times and you strive for improvement. And like I said, I'm not a god. I've done some bad stuff before, and I've made some people unhappy, and I've been manipulative, and I've been toxic in friendships and relationships. But if you can strive to be better and strive to improve aspects of yourself, then that can be a really good thing. And I've done a lot just this year in trying to become a better person, if I'm honest. So, and in turn, that links directly to happiness, because I am having actually a really good 2021, and that's because I'm focusing on myself and nothing else. I'm not worried about relationships. I'm not even worried about friendships. I'm just solely focused on my journey and improving who I can be. And it's so good. Like, you just get the benefits, and, I'm not saying that I'm having an amazing year, but it's a lot better than 2020, and it's good, and I'm on the right path. So, yeah, there's definitely a thing for making a change in other people's lives, and it's definitely something I would agree with that we want to strive for. So, yeah, probably a couple more.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well, thank you. And are you like how's it going for you guys? Obviously, we've got it pretty good over here, so I can sit back and say how life's good. But that's because I've got a lot more freedoms now. But obviously different part of the world for you guys.
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, things starting to open up again, and you can start to meet up with your friends and so on. And I have missed that, but you know, these lockdowns and so on is giving me time to think about myself, who I am. Should I change who I am? And yeah, I think I'm in a good place. You know, like you said before, I was in a relationship before, which was something I rushed into. It was silly. I look back on that. I don't regret it. You shouldn't have any regrets. It was a mistake.
Yeah.
But I'm learning from it, and I have learned from it. You live and learn, and you make sure you don't make the same mistake again. That's all part of life, isn't it?
I think so, and I think it's important to recognize that, you know, not to be dependent on someone else.
Absolutely.
I've struggled a lot with that. First time I fell in love, was when I was 17. I've spoken to a lot of people about this, and I'd been through a couple of smaller relationships before. I'd even dated someone for almost a year before, but I was just younger and I didn't really know what love was. And then I dated this girl from 17 to 18, so dated for 11 months again. And that was like such a shock to me when it was over, because just the emotions and just, wow, like I was so codependent on this person that when that ended, I was like, shit, like my life is over. Like I was really depressed. Like I was speaking earlier about like having depressing stages in my life. This was definitely one of them. It took me a long time to get over that. That ended in April 2017, and honestly, I didn't get over that fully until September 2018 when I went over to Europe. So it took me longer than the relationship to actually get over. And then I got into another long-term one in January 2019 for 18 months. That ended in, I think, September last year. And it's not that, like, and I love that person even more than the first person, but it's been a lot easier to get over because I'd recognized, you know, not to be so codependent. And even though I'm still struggling with codependence a little bit and whatnot, I think just focusing on yourself is ultimately what can make you happy. So yeah,
definitely.
Now, before we finish off, I want to ask, how do you be happy? How to be happy? We've spoken about how to attain it, I suppose, but like, is there any sort of tips? What sort of tips do you kind of have? I mean, I'll start with a few. Obviously, you want to like conquer negative thinking, and I know I've read modules and stuff from psychology. Like, I don't do any psychology units, but just have read up on this before. And they do say, don't try to stop negative thoughts. If you tell yourself, I have to stop thinking about this, it only makes you think about it more. I don't know if you've had that before, if you've had intrusive thoughts and stuff like that where you just can't get them out of your head. You know, it's like if I told you a song, if I said, hey, Gangnam Style by Psy. We all know that song. I don't know why that came into my head. But if I said to you, okay, don't think about that. You're thinking about it, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Exactly. So don't try to suppress negative thoughts.
No.
Just let them be and let them flow. Another tip I think to be happy is to treat yourself like a friend. Because like we've been saying about making yourself happier by treating others, making others happy. I mean, if you treat yourself like you're a friend, then, you know, I think you can get a lot out of that. And then there's a lot of things, you know, like controlled breathing, just taking a bit of time out of your day to just kind of live in the moment, just do a bit of deep breathing, meditating sort of. not the really lame stuff. You don't even have to put on headphones or anything. Just do a couple of deep breaths here and there. But yeah, that's a couple of tips of how I think how you can be happy. Exercise as well. That's obviously a big thing. But
definitely.
What type of tips do you have?
Well, leading off what you just said, after my first relationship ended, I started exercising a lot more than I had ever done before. You know, I started going to the gym, I started going running, and it made me feel better. I wasn't doing it to try and get ripped or whatever. I was just doing it mentally, physically. You know, that was my way of finding happiness. Just off what you said. And another thing, you do the things that you love. You might have touched on it already. So maybe you can't go on a holiday every year. But as long as you get to do something you love every now and then, you'll find great happiness.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And, I think as well, this is something I want to talk about in another podcast about disappointment. But I'll talk a little bit about it now because I think life's full of disappointments. But it's how you react to those disappointments. I think I was actually talking to my psychologist about this, so I won't delve too deep into it now. But life can be disappointing. But if like I said, you just got to be able to overcome those disappointments. How you react. So, for example, I was meant to go to South America or Central America last year. I never planned anything or booked anything. Like, I did plan it, but I didn't book anything. I was going to go with my then girlfriend. And I always wanted to do like a continent every 2 years. Now, since COVID, obviously that's not a possibility anymore. So here I am. And, that's not happening. And I'm sitting end of last year going, what do I do? Like, this sucked. Like, I missed out on traveling. I was meant to go overseas, and this is, I'd just come out of a relationship at this point as well, and I was like, this just sucks. Like, I really wanted something to look forward to, and I can't go overseas, and it won't be a very long time. So then I was like to a couple of mates, let's go on a little holiday. So I went away for a few days, and I just went down the coast. Only for, 2 nights, but, it was fun and it was enjoyable. And, like you said, you can't always go on holidays, and that's exactly what that was. I couldn't go to where I necessarily wanted to go, but I still had a great time for a couple of days and treated myself. So, sometimes you just gotta adapt to life and enjoy what you can, I suppose. Make the most of things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things I learnt from 2020 is that, I'm so grateful for my life and what's presented to me and the opportunities I have and what's in front of me. And there's a lot of people out there that are a lot less fortunate than me. And I'm sure you feel the same.
No, definitely. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to bring up or any possible questions that we could delve into before we wrap things up?
I guess the final point I wanted to make is just a tip, really, and I'm sure you've touched on it and thought about it as well. It's pushing yourself, not others. And it's about the independence, like you said. It is easy to feel that someone else is responsible for your fulfillment, but the reality is that really your charge. Once you realise that, then you've got the power to get where you want to go. So you start blaming yourself and saying, oh, well, it's not fair, it's not this, it's not that. And then you'll find the answers you're looking for so much sooner. You push yourself and not push others.
I actually love that because, and obviously you don't want to be, beating yourself up, right? And I know that that's not what you mean. But, that is definitely a thing. I mean, blaming other people gets you nowhere, right? I'm not gonna talk about specific people that have blamed me for things before and whatnot. Obviously I've had friends and people in my life and, very significant people to me that have often blamed me for things. And honestly, sometimes someone else is at some fault, but you got to turn to yourself first. And in my opinion, like, look at what you can do. What can I improve? Because at the end of the day, you can't control other people, right?
No.
I always say to my dad, like, hey, like, oh, you made me upset or you made me angry, and he always goes, I don't make you feel anything. And it's actually so true though, because it's like, no one else can actually make you feel any way. Like, technically you chose to be that way. Like, you know, if someone slaps you on the cheek, like, out of anger, obviously that's going to make you feel angry and upset, right? But at the end of the day, like, I am my own person, and it's actually how I respond and react, isn't it? So
Yeah.
It's there's so much more that we could probably talk about on this, but probably wrap it up because I have to go to bed and make sure this is uploaded. But thanks for joining me, Bulent. Any final points before I wrap things up?
No, I'm glad that I've come on and talked about it, and hopefully I'll come on again some other time.
Oh, yeah,
and,
I've got that.
Also wanted to say congratulations. Watford got promoted to the Premier League
Hey,
again. So,
let's go! How good is that? That is amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to bring that up, actually. I was going to say, poor Cardiff, mate. Not the best season.
I know. Yeah.
But you know,
The last one-
look at Barnsley. They finished 21st in the Championship last season, and now they're 6th in the playoffs. So, you know, it's an interesting competition, the Championship. But no, I am absolutely buzzing, and it's awesome. And I would love nothing more than Cardiff and Swansea to both come up someday, and we see the Welsh derby in the Premier League.
Yeah, that would be something.
I mean, I know it's all right in the Championship, but it's something else when it's Premier League. But we might have to wait a little bit longer for that.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But no, yeah, I'd love for you to come back on again. And yeah, if you have a topic, let me know. I'm always gonna reply. I'm pretty good at replying to people, actually. I have noticed that. I'm really good at, well, on Instagram and Snapchat. On Facebook, maybe not as good. I sometimes ignore people on Facebook, but Snapchat and Instagram, always reply, always open my messages. Like, I don't know why, it just annoys me if I see that there's notifications there. But Facebook, I just don't care, so I don't know why that's a thing. Do you want a little plug on your Instagram? It's Bulent Bedir, isn't it? Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yes, so that is BULENTBEDIR. I'll tag you in all of the social media stuff I put up for this anyway. But okay. Thanks for joining me, and just a couple more things. I'll probably upload this on YouTube as well. So it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on those platforms. I'm gonna upload this on YouTube as well as the first episode, so you can subscribe to me on there as well. And if you prefer watching the podcast, I don't know why you would want to, just looking at me. But maybe that's the thing. I mean, I'm someone who listens to podcasts, and I don't need the visual thing, but apparently some people just prefer watching YouTube videos. So, yep, whatever. If you want to do that, please feel free. Just make sure to subscribe. Thanks everyone for listening. And I'll be back in a couple of weeks, probably back again with Charlie, with another topic. And what else? I did have a couple of other things. So yeah, subscribe on all those platforms. Oh yeah, and an Instagram page is hoping to be in the making. I'm probably gonna make an Instagram account soon. Charlie and I spoke about it last time I saw him, but I might just wait a couple more weeks until I just build. I was thinking maybe when like an episode hits 200 downloads / listens, that's when I'll make the Instagram account. But Charlie thought that'd be a good idea to submit questions on and stuff. But yeah, and if you're listening and you want to join the podcast, please message me. I have a lot of people interested, but in saying that, I had like 4 or 5 people lined up for this podcast, and they all pulled out. And thankfully, Bulent pulled through. So I just want to say a big thank you once again to you, Bulent, for coming on last minute.
Don't mention it.
I really, really do appreciate it. And I also, last thing, I got a new, a cover for the podcast. Laura messaged me the other day. I don't know if you're listening to this, Laura, but I'm just going to shout her out. That's on her Instagram is at LAUXBEAR. And she was basically just bored, and she said, "What are the themes of your podcast?" And I was like, I told her, and I was like, "Why are you asking me this?" And she said, "Oh, I was thinking about drawing you a new cover for the podcast," and she drew me a podcast cover. So you're probably seeing this if you're listening to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You're seeing the podcast drawn up by Laura. So make sure to follow Laura because I'm grateful for people helping me out even in the smallest ways. So awesome. Thank you again for listening. And Bulent, do you have any final words to finish up on before I close this off for real?
Just make sure that you download this and share it with all your friends because I think it's got a lot of potential to go somewhere. So yeah, as many friends as you want to tell, make sure you do.
Oh, thanks, mate. I appreciate that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Follow me on Instagram too, if you don't already. I'm sure you do though. You probably know who I am, but that's at e.li.maynard until I get the actual Zero Barriers podcast Instagram account up. But anyway, thank you again, Bulent, and episode 3 will be out in a couple weeks' time, probably back with Charlie, as long as Charlie doesn't pull a sneaky on me like everyone else. Okay, thank you guys. Take care.